welcome back to my channel. If you guys are new, welcome to the family. My name is Dina. I am so happy to have you guys here. Today is a topic that kind of teeters between the spiritual field and also psychology, which is a lot of what my channel is actually. But I think it is a very important topic to talk about, and as you can see from the title, today we are talking about inner child healing. Now before I get started, I just want to say that although I'm going to be sharing a lot of information about inner child healing as well as techniques that you can use, this is by no means the only information that is out there. Inner child healing is going to look different for everybody. It's going to take some time to figure out really what works with you, what resonates with you, what is going to help you heal your inner child the best. And there's so many different ways that you can do this, and there's so many different teachers out there who can give you information. So if you don't resonate with what I give you today, that is okay. That doesn't mean that you can't do inner child healing. There's so many different techniques and ways to do this. So without any further ado, let's first talk about what is inner child healing and why would you do it. Now, inner child healing can almost be described as either a therapy or a type of working where you address the scars, the wounds, the things that we have carried throughout our lives that happen in early childhood. Now, anyone with any sort of basic knowledge in psychology knows that the things that happen when you're a child, they affect you your entire life. These traumas can manifest in different ways. They could have been abuse, difficulties in your home life with your parents. Maybe your family was not financially stable. Maybe you weren't treated fairly in school. Maybe you were bullied. Maybe you had very little self-esteem as a child because of the way you were treated. There's so many different things that can happen in our childhood that can really affect us later on in life, and it never goes away. And as much as we want to forget it sometimes and push it down and just start over, we can't really do that because the pain and the traumas that we carry, it still unconsciously affects us in our day-to-day lives. It may prevent us from going after something that we want. It may lower our self-esteem, our confidence in certain areas of our life. If we didn't have a good relationship with our parents, for example, if we didn't have a good attachment style with our parents, then that often affects us with our other relationships, maybe friendships, maybe romantic relationships. So really taking the time to heal this inner child, the wounds that we have from our past, is extremely helpful for our life now and living our life to the fullest now and just healing that pain, because no one wants to carry that pain their entire life. Now, like any other therapy or working, inner child healing is not something that just happens overnight. You don't just do it once and then you are absolutely healed and it goes away. It's something that takes time, it takes work. Now, another thing I want to mention for inner child healing is not only is it healing for your inner child and the experiences that you had at a young age, but it's almost healing generations in a way, healing traumas from like your mother, from your grandmother, your great-grandmother, as well as, you know, your father, your grandfather, and like basically your entire line of ancestors. And it's interesting because people don't realize how much our DNA affects our behavior. Traumas and things that your parents dealt with and your grandparents dealt with also affect you, and not in the way that you think. I actually learned about this study in a podcast the other day, and I'm totally blanking on what the podcast episode is, but they were talking about generational trauma. They did this study on rats in the lab, and as much as I hate hearing about this kind of stuff, like, you know, animals have been tested for science and psychology for like years. I am not one to promote animal cruelty in any way, but I think it's valid information that should be shared for this topic. So if you find this stuff, you know, disturbing, I'll put a timestamp for you guys if you don't want to hear anything about that kind of stuff. So basically what they did is they had these rats in the lab and they had a scent, and I can't remember what the scent was, but they let the rats smell this particular scent and then they would shock them. So they were basically conditioning them to fear this smell because every single time they smelled that, they were shocked. Now, what they did is they bred these rats, and they found that when they took these baby rats, and they didn't shock the baby rats, but they showed them this, like, they allowed them to smell the scent, they instantly had that fear reaction. Now, the rats didn't teach them this. They didn't say, oh, like every single time you know, smell the scent, run, or anything like that. At least we don't speak rat language, but I'm pretty sure, I think they were taken from their parents pretty young. What we learned from that is our DNA holds really interesting, valuable information, you know, fear information about what to be scared of, what to be wary of. Basically, our survival instincts is held in our DNA. Now, if a fear response like this can be passed on from one generation to the other, and it's not even over like a long period of time of evolution, like if it can be passed on like that quick, imagine our own generation and what's passed on from our mother and father to us, and you know, from our grandparents to our parents and then to us. Think about all that information that's held within our DNA, all that trauma. So by healing our own traumas and doing our inner child work, not only are we healing our inner child traumas, but we're also healing those that were passed on from our parents and our grandparents and so on. And also, if you plan on having kids, protecting the future generation from also carrying that trauma. And not to say they're not going to have their own traumas to heal from, but it's definitely going to help. There's so much information out there about, you know, generational traumas and stuff like that. But inner child healing is extremely powerful, and there's so many ways you can go about that. So that's what we're going to talk about next. Let's talk about inner child healing. So how do you do inner child healing? Well, the first thing to do is to acknowledge they are there. And when I say they, I mean your inner child, because as we grow up, yes, we change, we evolve, we get bigger, we call ourselves adults, but the child inside us never goes away. And a lot of us are ashamed of our inner child, and we don't listen to them, and we don't want to pay attention to them. And just to give you guys a little bit more context, it took me a while to really acknowledge my inner child and accept her, because growing up, I did not like myself. I was bullied. I was the awkward child that took a while to have her glow up. I had crooked teeth, I had frizzy hair because I didn't know how to style my hair, I had bushy eyebrows.
I just wanted to add that I don't think these are objectively bad things. These are things that our society has taught us aren't beautiful, and these are things that I was personally made fun of as a kid. So that's why those things came up. Just to let you guys know.
I was bullied, girls made fun of me. This was a weight that I carried a lot of my life, because even going into some of my like more recent relationships and environments, work environments, different places I've been in my life, I have felt this way again. I have had girls make me feel this way again. So there's definitely been a lot of shame and embarrassment of this inner child that I've tried so hard to get rid of. And as I've gotten older, I've tried to, you know, like be more confident. I've tried to be more outgoing. And I wanted to reinvent myself per se as I got older. I'm like, you know, one day I'm going to be that outgoing, pretty girl, and I'm going to love myself, because I did not feel that way about myself as a young age. So as I started kind of growing and evolving and trying to turn into the person that I wanted to be, get away from what I didn't want to be, that geeky girl that was the outsider and didn't love herself and all that stuff. Like, I didn't want to be her anymore. Goodbye, little Dina. Like, see you later. This is the new me. I want to reinvent myself. It's okay to want to reinvent yourself. It's okay to want to grow, to become a more confident woman or man or whoever, because, you know, gender doesn't matter. But it's not okay to hate your younger self. It's not okay to push them down and just be like, okay, like, I don't want to know you anymore. I don't love you anymore. You're not the person I want to be, so bye, I don't love you. That is not okay, because that creates a lot of problems. And for many years, I lived like that. And I didn't want to look at old pictures of me when I had my crooked teeth and I was in my geek phase, because it brought back pain and bad memories. When I finally acknowledged my inner child, sent her love and understanding, and told her she did her best for the position that she was in, and no matter what pain she endured, she was kind to every single person she talked to, even her bullies. When I told her that she was loved and she was a good person and it's okay that she felt this pain, when I acknowledged her existence and sent her love, that is when things changed for me. When we can't love that part of ourselves, we can't love our full selves now. That's the first step. I hope my personal situation example helped to clarify that a little bit for you guys. So the next thing I want to talk about is paying attention to what you feel. Really getting in tune with your inner feelings and your experience is going to be extremely helpful for opening you up to be able to do this inner child work. So maybe you feel anxiety, maybe you feel anger, maybe you feel insecurity, sadness, sadness, abandonment, frustration. What is coming up? Why is this coming up? What does this mean for you? It's important to think about, why do you feel this way? Where do these feelings stem from? What is triggering them now and why? Because there's usually triggers that happen in our everyday life now that trigger the pain from the past. So being able to really recognize when that trigger is happening is going to be extremely helpful for you, and reflecting and also like resolving and working through this pain, this trauma that you carry. One of the best ways to heal these feelings, this pain that you're carrying, is to have a conversation with your inner child. Now, this can be in the form of so many different ways. You can literally sit there and talk to your inner child. If you have, you know, the privacy and you feel comfortable doing that, that is a great way of doing it. Some people just feel good getting it out and vocalizing. If you are a journaler, writing down like a letter to them or talking to them through the paper can be a very helpful way, and some people find that writing out their feelings is extremely helpful, and it also documents it if you want to look back on it later and kind of see where your progress is going. I think a really important thing to address too when you do like a journaling or talking to your inner child is asking yourself, what did your inner child, or what did the child version of you back then need to hear back then that didn't hear that? What would you tell them now? Like if you were to go back in time and talk to, you know, 5-year-old you or 8-year-old you or 11-year-old you or whatever, what would you say to them? What do you think you needed to hear back then? You can ask your inner child, what do they need and how can you support them? And really having this conversation and getting deeper with that is going to be very helpful. Now, there's different ways to initiate this inner child work in different environments and different techniques that you can really dive into these questions and get in a state where you feel comfortable and relaxed enough to get these questions, because this process is not going to be easy for everyone, especially if you have very severe trauma, which if you have severe trauma, I highly recommend doing this process with a therapist or someone in the mental health field. I am not a psychologist. I have a psychology background. I went to school for it, but I am not a psychologist. So I have to say, like, doing this with a professional is going to be very helpful, because sometimes there's traumas that are too difficult to address on our own. And also often a professional will help to bring up things that we've suppressed that maybe you're a little bit more resistant to and having a hard time talking about or bringing up because it's too scary. So it'll be a lot more helpful to have that support. But there's other ways to address this. If you want to do it by yourself, there's meditation. You can do EFT tapping, and I actually have a video on EFT tapping for self-confidence. I believe it's self-confidence. It's kind of like a self-love, self-confidence. I'll link it for you guys at the end of this video and also in the description box if you guys are interested in that. But EFT tapping is a really good way just to kind of flow and let your words come out and also address things that need to be addressed, that like any sort of pain, any sort of resistance that might be coming up. You can do EFT tapping specifically for inner child healing. I don't have a video specifically on that. Maybe I'll do something like that in the future, but it's kind of a little bit trickier for something like that because it's going to be so personal and so different for each person depending on their background, their experience, the traumas they have personally dealt with. So this is something that is a little bit more like learn about EFT tapping and kind of what it is, and then personalize it for your own experience and see what comes up. Now, I also want to talk about what I personally have found has really helped me with my inner child work. I have done like meditation, journaling type things, but the biggest breakthrough for me was actually breath work. And I do breath work every so often in this circle kind of setting. It's like a embodiment circle that I often go to, held by these two women, and one of them leads the breath work part of the whole ceremony. And I found it extremely healing because breath work almost takes you to a trance-like experience. It relaxes you and also just kind of brings you into a state where you feel very comfortable and open to feeling anything that needs to be felt, any sort of traumas, feelings that need to come up essentially. And I've had some inner child stuff come up during breath work, and it has been extremely healing and extremely eye-opening because things come through that don't normally come through in your everyday life. Different feelings and thoughts and kind of realizations or epiphanies that I normally wouldn't have in my everyday life. So breath work is extremely powerful. Don't doubt that. If you've never experienced breath work before and you're interested in that, give it a Google search. There might be someone who's practicing or leading a breath work circle, or maybe they do it for like individual sessions or something like that. I've never personally come across that in my area, although I haven't really looked super hard. I've always done it in like a group setting where everyone kind of lies in a circle. We've got our blankets, we've got some music, and then they lead the breath work ceremony. But it's extremely powerful. So maybe look into that if you're interested in that. There's so many different ways to speak to your inner child and get in the mood for that. But honestly, the biggest overall theme here is you have to feel comfortable. You have to feel safe. That is the biggest thing. The last thing I want to mention is that inner child healing is definitely closely linked to shadow work. So if you're doing inner child healing, I would definitely also look into shadow work by Carl Jung, because you might find that, learning about both of those is very helpful on your journey. Shadow work is kind of all about accepting the darker parts of ourselves that we don't really want to address and don't want to accept. Anyways, guys, I'm gonna leave it at that. But like I said, there are so many ways to go about inner child healing that I hope that this video gave you a good start at least, and a lot of helpful information to get started on this inner child healing journey, because it's a journey. It really is a journey. It's gonna take some time to get yourself to open up enough, and just when you think you got to the core of it, you'll probably realize that there's even more buried inside of you that needs to come out. And if you do need it, make sure you do talk to a mental health professional, because they can also help you through this journey. I hope this video was helpful for you guys. If it was, please give it a thumbs up to let me know that you like this type of content. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button, because I post new content every single week. And if you like spirituality, if you like witchcraft, self-help, self-improvement, self-love type content, then you don't want to miss out. And I would love to have you be a part of our family. I hope to see you guys in the next video, and I hope you have an amazing day or night whenever you're watching this. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.